Hello folks, welcome back to the workshop. Today we have a little belt sander for you. This is the wee Makita belt sander 9911. This one here actually takes the smaller belts. They are the 76 by 457 belt. Now customer says it might need bearings, so I'm assuming this one's going to be making noise. Or just not running at all. That's not bearings, that's just a belt. Must have done more damage than I thought. There we go. And there's the problem. Broken belt. Don't think that just broke. What the way did that actually break? It's hard. How did it go like that? Now there's how. That's from the year 2000. So that thing is actually 24 years old. So that is what happened. That belt, it's just perished. Maybe today as well, with whatever it was he was last sanding. Look at that. Completely clogged. That's how this was not getting out the last time it was being used. So the motor's running and the belt works. Check it, the rubber, the drive roller's okay. Yeah. Unlike the big sanders, you can actually replace this rubber here. If it perishes or breaks or snaps, you can just buy this as a sleeve and put it over the drum. The big 9401 2s, 3s and 4 belt sanders, the actual rubber is actually part of the pulley itself. So if the rubber perishes in them, you have to replace the whole pulley, whole drive wheel, which is not cheap. But this one is alright. So hopefully all we need to do is replace this belt. But first, I'll just give us a wee quick blowout with the compressor. That's our clean and one new synchro belt. €10. It's a cheap and easy repair. A bit of an expensive sander to buy, but when something as simple as a timing belt like this goes, you can easily replace it. When you buy the cheaper brand belt sanders, generally you get no parts for them. So something like a belt goes, that's it. I know myself, a wee small works one at home, little belt broke, nowhere online you can actually buy a belt for it. So it's basically worthless. These here, decent wee machines to be honest. Everybody that buys them kind of needs the big ones. They go for these here because they're cheaper, but they seem to do quite a bit of work. They're lighter duty and they're not great for prolonged use because the big ones have a friction pad here, so the belt's running and there's barely any friction at all. This one doesn't have a friction pad. The belt's just running on this here steel plate fine for smaller jobs, but if you're using it for a long period of time, that steel plate will eventually start getting hot. At €150, they're not the cheapest belt sander to buy, but whenever you'll get 24 years of work out of it, they definitely pay for themselves in the long run, especially when you can get them repaired so easily. Lovely. Wrong way around. Now your plate goes on first. Clicks on there. Then your belt. So that should be her. That's it. One Makita belt sander 9911 from the year 2000, fixed up again. That's just a new drive belt. That's her. Now, here's a good one for you. A SIP 50 litre compressor. This is the SIP Airmate. Customer left this in because it will not switch on. It's been lying up a while. He's plugged it in and it has no power whatsoever. This is actually a very simple fix. There's actually no fix on this at all. Switch it on. Nothing. Not starting. Now, the fuse in the plug. Nothing wrong with it. And nothing wrong with the lead. Problem is very simple. Obviously make sure your machine's unplugged. Power's come from the lead lead's fine. There's the lead coming on from your plug, and this is going onto your compressor. Now the switch itself, when this button's down, it's switched off. When you pull it up, it's switched on. So whenever you take this cover off, the switch will automatically be on. This is the switch here. As you can see, it's in the off position. Now you'd assume this here is faulty. The switch must not be working. It's jammed down, it won't switch on. Or it could be a lot simpler than that. It's not switching on because it's already at maximum pressure. The dial on the clock, which is obviously broken, is already at 8 bar. There's actually nothing wrong with this at all. Customer didn't realise after the last time he used his compressor, he's left it fully pressurised. So whenever he came to use it this time, he's plugged it on, switched it on, and it's done nothing. And assumed the thing's faulty and not switching on. It's simply not switching on because it's already full of air. Now, with the tank emptied a bit, it will switch on. Ta-da! Nothing wrong with that at all. That is the simplest fix this year so far. Now we're going to some bigger guns, quite literally. This is the Makita TW1000, a 1000 Newton meter inch drive nut gun, corded obviously. Where is she? 2016. Not sounding good. spluttering and sparking. But actually only on one side. Actually, that might not be too bad. We might be able to do something with that. Rubber cover over the brushes. That's awkward. So that one's fine. Let's go around to this one. Feel the difference already. That's slack. The brush is burnt up. So the springs failed or heated up and burnt away. That is the problem. So this should be a nice simple fix. All we need is a set of brushes, new ones, and a file. The file's probably not even essential. But just give that holder a quick wee rub. Make sure there's nothing blocking the brushes. Just make sure they go on nice and free. And they're not blocked. You can hear they're touching. So that's okay. That back on. I'll just do the same with this one. That should be all we need for this here inch drive Makita nut gun. Make sure that's all the way on. That should do. That's her. Nice simple fix. And next up is a little magnetic drill, a Revo. Never heard of this one. Never seen one like it. Nice wee small compact one. There's actually a nice decent body on this as well. It's built a little bit different. Normally they're all hollow down this side. It's just this plate here to access the insides of it. Right. Customer says it won't stay on. Magnet's working. And the motor does work. It's just the switch is not staying on. So everything starts up and runs fine. But the wee solenoid inside the switch isn't activating. So it's not getting power to keep it switched on. So the problem is just the switch. To replace all of this. A tight space to get on there. Right, the bridge rectifier is right up here in the top. All the leads behind it. There's not much space to get all the way into the back of there to get to that switch. Unless we don't have to get into that. should be a cover on top of it. So that didn't work. Look at how much of a tight space that has to come out. It's just had 4 holes drilled in the body and cut out to slide that switch in. It looks like it's cut a little bit too small. That there has been pressed in and there's no way to get it out. It's actually too small for that hole. Must have been squeezed in. It means we can't squeeze it out now. Finally, that's where we need to change. Right, I don't have this exact one, so the second hand one's going to have to do, which is a 110 volt, but they're all basically the same anyway. This one, mind you, is a different brand, but still the same voltage. It's just a different switch up on top, but it still has a wee rubber seal on it as well though. This is going to have to do. Let's take off this little seal because this one doesn't have one. It's not all that important, but might just help keep any moisture out. Not even moisture, more than likely oil and cutting fluid. Just stick that on there to help. Now, hopefully that should do the trick. It just clicks down into place. Right, see if it works. A nice, cheap and handy fix. Would have been better to put on a brand new one, but I ain't got, and this man doesn't want to wait. So that's her. Right, next up we have a little Dewalt saw. Now this should be running fine, or at least so the boy tells me. Problem is, it's had a fall. It's fell off a roof. Broken the guard, not even that badly mind you. It's cracked at the tip, or it broke here at the tip, and he's actually cut it flat and smoothed it out trying to repair it, but he says still it's not functioning correctly. It sort of needs to come on around here to grab the timber when it's going through. He says now whenever he's cutting it keeps getting jammed, either won't push the guard back or gets jammed halfway down, so he needs a new guard. Sadly I haven't got a new guard for these, and it's going to take a while to order one on. I might have a second hand one, like so. This is the older brush machine, so there actually has a few of these scrapped off. Normally the motor burns out of them, so they're not worth fixing, so you end up with a few guards. Surprisingly, for cordless saws you never actually really need to replace the guards on them. This one's only getting it because it was dropped, but in most cases they rarely actually need a guard. That goes for any brand, not just these Dewalts. If you go to a corded version, the old Makitas and Bosch saws, you're regularly changing the safety guards on them, simply because they were made of metal. If they got bent and caught the blade or rubbed, they either smashed or got chewed up or something and needed to be replaced. These cordless saws, guards are just plastic. They're actually quite durable. They can take a shock and not break. Plus, if the blade actually catches it, it'll just cut through the plastic a little bit, and it still won't actually destroy the guard. So it's actually very rarely you actually need to change these. I actually never keep them in stock now. So because they last so long, there's nothing wrong with using a second hand part. So change this out. Change it, get all this here stuff off, front and back flange, and there's a ring spring underneath. So it's just a coiled up piece of metal, a spring steel. There's one little end on it. Get underneath it, prise it up. That's all that holds the guard on. Then you just lift it up. Take it away. Obviously just keep your return spring. As you can see in this one, he's just taken off this very end piece. Not done that much damage, but it does affect the performance of the guard. So get rid of that. We'll clean this. Your return spring hooks onto the guard, compress it, actually get it in to the inside. And this wee piece here sticking out goes into this hole just here. That in, pull the guard up to clear this bump stop, and that's it. And all you do then is refit this little coil spring. That's it. Simple and cheap. That's her. One Dewalt saw, a DCS391 with a second hand guard fitted. That's her, ready for work again. Now, here's one I don't think I've had up before. A Dewalt strimmer. This is the DCMST561 18 volt cordless Dewalt strimmer with a brushless motor. This one actually hinges in the middle. For easy storage. Good wee idea that actually. It's only a brushless motor, so you can have the switch and battery this end and the motor down this end, so there's no actual rotating shaft in the middle. You just need a wire connecting the two. This thing is running no problem. Now, customer says they were using it at one stage and it just stopped dead, would not switch on at all. He eventually gave up on it and put it away in the shed, left it a week or so, and actually when I went back to use it then another time to look at it, it was running. And I ran it for about 10 or 20 minutes and the same thing happened again, just stopped and wouldn't switch on again. Left it for another few days, went back to it, same thing, ran for 20 minutes, then stopped again. So needless to say, he's getting a little bit annoyed, so he left it in for repair. Now what it could be, two different options. One, it's going to be a controller or a motor fault, an intermittent fault that only happens every once in a while, either on the switch or on the controller, simply to do with being a brushless motor. I don't think it's that though. I think it could be the second thing, which is overheating. This is his third time now it's just stopped. It's been used for about 10 or 20 minutes continuously, and then it's just shut down and won't start up again. That to me sounds like a heat problem. If these things get too hot, they're going to detect the heat, they're going to shut down. And by the looks of it, it could well be that. Alright, going to be much air flowing through there. Take it apart and have a wee look. Potentially this could be packed out. And if the fan is in behind there, there's not going to be getting an airflow sucked through the motor to blow out down here. We'll open it and see, but I'd say that's what the problem is. Unlike the last Weber one, it's not the head being stiff, that's moving freely, but unlike the last Weber one as well, there's actually a lock pin here for locking the head so you can easily remove it. Take that off, and that. Four altogether. Get rid of that. Just clean that a wee bit just in case. See if we can take this whole head off maybe. No, not that easy. We have to get on here. And there we go. Clogged. Doesn't matter how much air is getting in through here. The vents at the top of the motor are completely covered. This thing ain't going to be able to cool down. The fan's down here spinning. It'll not be coming in through here. It'll be sucked in from the top and blown out down here. So these are actually the exhaust vents here. These here, the intake. there's no air getting in, she's very quickly going to overheat. So this might be a very simple fix. It seems an alright design, but obviously not just sealed up well enough. Should really have a formed O-ring down at the bottom to seal that up. Obviously don't. So when the grass gets up and around here, which isn't a problem because there's no seal, it'll eventually start getting underneath here and into the gearbox. But it's only grass, so it's not going to do the gears all that much damage. Clean this out, see if that fixes it. That's her. She was actually well choked up. Need to get her squeezed back in. Put a tight fit with them wires. That on. One long one goes down in there. Put a little bit of grease on, simply because I took some of it out. Trying to get rid of these grass clippings. Put the head back on. Particular ones for Dewalt aren't too bad. Unlike a lot of Dewalt stuff, the motor and switch is actually separate. And that's when you can actually buy the motor separately from the switch. So your switch ever packs in, you can replace it. Not cheap, mind you. That's about 50 or 60 euro. But the motor costs a good bit more. So if you need to replace the motor in this thing, you're looking at least 100 euro. I also just cleaned out this head too. Not necessary, but may as well, soon as I'm at it. Plate over the top of that. And your spool head going to it. And again, this here as well, if you ever damage it or break it, you can buy it on its own. And that should be it. There you go, here's a new one for you now. If you have one of these Dewalt strimmers, the DCMST561, if it keeps shutting down on you, check that head. Look at these wee vents here. If you can't see into them, if they're all blocked up, clean them out. More than likely the motor's going to be overheating. That there should get this thing running a hell of a lot better now. Generally, brushless machines, if they're starting and stopping like that, if you can use them for a little while, then they shut down. It's because it's detecting something it doesn't like. Generally, it's going to be heat, something like that. It's only whenever they're starting and stopping as soon as you pull the trigger, or not running at all at any time, that's when you have a major problem. Then you get into controllers and motors. But when they're able to run for a few minutes, 5 or 10 minutes before stopping, generally it's going to be a simple fix. So that's that. If you have a Dewalt cordless strimmer, keep that head cleaned out. Now for something a little different. This is a Strata Drywall sander. You put up drywall and you're putting mud on the joints to finish it off or to smooth off a wall. This is a sander for sanding the wall or sanding the joints. Big rotating sander and a long shaft. Now these things aren't cheap. They can cost anywhere from €600 to €700 for one of these here machines. The boys dropped it on, says it's not even his, he's actually got a lend of it. Problem is, it's just not switching on. The switch was giving a little bit of trouble and now it won't switch on at all. And sadly, he also has two Dewalt ones that have also packed in, and that's why he had to get a lend of this one, but this is also packed in, so it needs this up and running. But luckily, it shouldn't really be that big a problem. I imagine it's just going to be a bit of drywall dust in the switch. Going to be the motor. It looks like there's a fair bit of drywall inside of this thing already. Doing nothing. It's a very soft click it's making as well. Right. We'll get into this and see if we can fix it up. Now we're guessing it is a switch. We hope it is, because I have no parts for these, and a switch at least can be cleaned out. But it could also be brushes, I suppose. We'll try the switch first. Sadly the switch is actually on the other side. So this is actually going to be an awkward enough one to get to. Mightn't have to take that off at all. Yeah. Imagine dust has something to do with it. So there's the switch up on here. That out. We'll see if we can clean it out. What I'm also going to do is clean all this gunk out as well, so this ain't going to be helping the machine at all. Now the switch itself should have a cover. There we go. And imagine there's dust inside of here, so we'll clean that out as well. Right, still not working unless you put pressure on it. A little bit of magic spray. All that is a contact cleaner. Great for cleaning electric contacts and they get dirty like this. Just keep clicking it back and forth to help free up the dirt. And then flood the inside so it all washes out. This will just flash away, evaporate fairly quickly and leave you no residue. Just short it out. I'll just give that a wee blow with the compressor again to make sure. You can actually hear the tone of the click has changed. You can already tell that's now working. Spot on. One clean switch, ready to work again without having to replace it. Your rocker switches like that there, it's very, very common for them to get dirty inside, just need to be cleaned out. Reinstall this and see if that cures the problem. Now we're installing this. You want to make sure you're in the right position. So that's it on. Make sure it's on where it says on in the body. You don't want to flip them around. That's sitting on there. Your leads will be sitting below. This is just for your hose, for your dust extraction. The body has two plastic pins that actually go onto this metal arm, so they have to be located. Squeeze them in. I also took this one out. And that should be it. Or at least we hope so. That's her. One Strata Drywall sander, up and running again, simply by cleaning out the switch. Simple, expensive machine and a cheap fix. Even if I had to replace that switch, it wouldn't be the most expensive part in the world. That's her. Now, next up we have a regular, not a regular problem, a regular machine, but this is also a regular problem. This one's been done before, the exact same thing, just like most of them. Cut the lead. I've been using it, I just got too close to the cable and he's given it a little nick. We just need this lead reconnected so nobody gets a shock. I've also done it back here too, somewhere there. It's actually going to get a good bit shorter. It's about 3 foot off the lead, 3 foot from there, 1 or 2 feet from here. I'm going to reuse the same cable because I don't have this kind of cable. I only have the rubberized stuff. And even if I used the 1mm stuff, these things take like 8 or 9 meters of cable. Works out quite expensive for all this little machine is. So this time I'm going to reuse the cable just to keep the cost down. So this is only a wee cheap machine. So to rewire it, you have to open it up. First get off this wee guard. Pull that off and unscrew the machine. And just to make things awkward for you, they have a single security Torx just there. The only thing is, it's very handy to actually change this lead. It's just going onto a little strip connector here. You can see this has been done before, because the neutral and live's already been marked in the case. Take that out, keep your grommet. That back on. Put a wee bootless ferrule on here as well. Simple as that. Push it back in there. You weave your cable around here to clamp it. And you also have this little cable clamp as well. It's a bit pointless having the two, because you never pull the cables out of these. Let's face it, they always get cut. That's it. Very easy to do and very quick. Squeeze your housing back together, tight down this side, because you have the gears you have to secure. That's it. In case you're wondering if it's worth doing this, this is a 2005 machine. So this thing's going on 20 years old. And the only thing that's ever needed to be done is a new cable. It's a lot cheaper to replace the cable or repair it like this than it is to replace the machine every time. Because these corded Hedge cutters, it's very common. Put it on there. Guard back on, screw that on, and then we'll tackle the plug. So just cut that and reuse the plug. Pretty sure I didn't wire that one. Somebody wasn't looking what they're at. Neutron lies on the wrong way around. Was that factory fitted like that? Might have been. Unless this man's had it off before and rewired the plug himself. But I'm pretty sure he didn't put on bitless ferrules, these brass ones. They're from Bosch. I wonder if they wired it wrong or him. Either way, it doesn't really make much of a difference. It's not going to make any difference the way the machine runs. This isn't polarity sensitive. But we'll just wire it right. I've always goes through the fuse. See, it might have been factory fitted because the lathe was a little bit shorter. That should be her. One Bosch corded Hedge trimmer. Rewired again with the same lead, just with the damaged bits cut off. Just a nice, simple and cheap fix for a cheaper green corded Hedge trimmer. Still plenty of length on it as well from the most jobs. That's her. Now, next up is we Makita drill. This is the older Makita STS, the DHR202. She's from 2016, but she's only a brushed machine. Generally, they're only good for lighter use. She's jammed or something inside. You can hear the motor struggling to run. Right, let's see if this is worth fixing. Depends if anything's burnt out. These things can generate a lot of heat when they're on because they're a brushed motor. That's what these rubber covers are actually for. These are the brush cap covers for holding the brushes on. These here are rubber covers over the top of them because if you overwork these here brush machines and you push them too hard, as you can see from that brush head, they can heat up. If they get too hot, they can actually melt through the caps. If you're sitting drilling, put a bit of pressure on the back of your hand. These rubber caps are there to stop the brush holder burning through, burning your hand. That's what they're actually for. And it shows you how hot they can get. This one didn't get as hot. But it's done work. Nothing major, but it has been used. Is it a motor problem or a gearbox problem? That's the main question. It's a gearbox problem and won't run because it's jammed up. It'll be cheaper to fix than if it was a motor jammed up. She was actually rubbing on the field. The windings look a little bit dark, especially there. Could be burnt out, but sometimes it's hard to tell, especially unless you're light. Not all armatures are actually the exact same colour. Windings can have a different colour lacquer on them. They can sometimes look darker than what they actually are. So I'm not sure if that's gone. Normally, when you burn an armature out, especially on a cordless machine that's brushed, you'll also burn up the brush holders. There's nothing wrong with them, nor the caps. It makes me wonder if that is burnt out or not. But it'll still be worth replacing it if that was the only thing that actually needed to be replaced, just the armature. I suppose you would still need brushes as well, but you don't need to replace the brush holders or the caps. They're still okay. No, actually there's the problem there. So she's rubbing on the field, but she hasn't rubbed too much on the armature. It's mainly just the field that's actually rubbed on. It's rubbed there because it's jammed. It's jammed because the field's broken. These two magnets here, permanent magnets, one of them's come loose and it's flipped around and jammed up the armature. So this might be a cheap enough fix after all. Both have actually come loose. Here's the problem. That needs to be replaced. Everything else looks okay. So I wonder if he's actually dropped this or something maybe. Right, field for these things costs about 30 or 40 euro. But I don't think I have one in stock. If I don't have one, I'll see if I have a second hand one, because a second hand one will do fine for this here machine. Look at that. I do actually have a brand new one on stock. Going by the box. It's been set up on that shelf for quite a while. There we go. One new Makita stator. So they have a little notch here that locates into the body. Not sure you know which side to go to. Puts it into the exact position for this to actually work. That sits there, and that's it. Close up your body, put it back together again. Very easy fix. Like I said, imagine that happened because it took a fall or something like that. The magnets are only glued in place. If you take a sharp shock, one of them or both of them can actually come slack. If they come loose, they'll turn around and jam up the motor. Won't actually even jam it. The motor will be trying to run, but the magnet's in the wrong position. It'll probably energize in both segments at the same time, and it'll be fighting with itself. But that's an easy and fairly cheap repair. Saves you buying a new drill anyway. Your battery retainer into the separate housing. Because this is an SDS drill, it's going to be hammering and rattling. So whenever it's actually running, this battery retainer is actually able to move freely from the drill. So it cuts down on the vibrations. When you're putting it on, make sure this little roller and pin installed here. That's just a nice little damper for the battery as well. Don't need new brushes. These aren't even halfway worn, and they might have gotten hot, as you can also tell by the lead, but they'll still function, so leave them as is, especially seeing as we don't know yet if it's done any damage to the armature. We'll know that as soon as we switch it on. Now, See what she runs like. That's me, not the drill. Battery's dead. Fresh battery should work better. What'll be wrong with that? One Makita SDS drill. Up and running again with a new field. Don't let them fall, and they'll not do that kind of damage. But even if they do, €40 will easily fix it up again. That's her, ready to go. Now, next up we have a Makita cordless grinder. This one is the DGA467, and she's from 2023, so she's not old. One-time wonder. There's that one there. There we go. Battery problem. That's a little bit older. Just not getting good contact there. Nothing wrong with the retainer itself, that's not burnt out. Check lock button. Seems to be working. We will check it as well, just in case. It is a little bit worn, not badly though. There's a little bit of a chamfer on either side, so you must have been using that for stopping. You can change that anyway, not an expensive thing. A couple of euro for the lock button. Main one's the battery. She's just not working in this. Little plastic cover covers one of the screws. Get that out. There's the problem there. One bent contact. Imagine that one's not getting correct reading. See if we can bend that back again. If messing with batteries, do so at your own risk. So you mess it up, you're in bother. You can't let these ones touch these ones. Bad things happen. And then these ones look to have a big gap on them. See if we can bend them in a little bit, get them a bit tighter. That gives them a good tight squeeze against the retainers. These ones here aren't as bad. There's just a bit of dirt on them. Hopefully that's all we need. The rest of the battery seems alright. Does that work any better? Much better. So that's the grinder. Head's okay. What I want to do now, so we'll just change that pin. It's really not that badly worn at all. Neither's the head. That might be more the problem. There's a bit of gunk packed underneath the button. It might not be getting the full way down. That might be more the problem. Prizing them off generally damages them. Just change that. Replace the cap. I'll just reuse that because there's nothing wrong with it. Push that on. Set it on top of something. Put on your spring. Position your cap. And then give it a tappy tap. You can already feel that's going down further. That should do the trick. A lot better. That should be her. One Makita DGA467. Battery contacts fixed up, and the lock switch under here cleaned out. Bit of debris actually just stopping it from going down the full way. That's her. Right, fix the Makita. So we'll see what we can do with the Bosch. Doing nothing. Generally these, if it was a motor or a controller problem, it's not worth fixing. Sometimes it has a switch, so we'll just check that, or a broken wire. There's not a wire. Maybe it's a switch. Let's hope so. That motor hasn't done very much. In other words, no, it's not a switch. After that, let's get onto the controller. That just ain't going to be worth changing. Not for an older brushed machine like this. That's a shame, because that there's not been used barely at all. She's from 2017. Must be just used the odd time. That's doing nothing. Right. See, maybe if I have a scrap one, the controller might be good in the scrap one, because motors eventually burn out in them because they're just a brushed DC motor. The brushes are gone, that's it. €100 a time to replace the motor on it. But the motor burns out, the controller is generally going to be okay. So if I have a scrap one, I'll put the controller on, because to buy that on its own, you're onto another €70 or €80. So if a second hand one, I'll fit that. Nah, I actually do have a scrap grinder, but the controller's already been robbed out of it. So this, I'm afraid, it's just not going to be worth fixing. That'd always be good for a spare, just in case they do have another one. For the age, price of the part, it's just not going to be worth fixing. Right, that's that one, not fixed. Right, we had a Makita, we had a Bosch, now it's time for a Dewalt. So this will be the last tool of the day. See if we can get this one fixed up. Customer says it's starting and stopping. Yeesh, doesn't sound good anyway. Not starting and stopping, but it sure doesn't sound good. There's something going on somewhere in this. Either a worn gear or a bad bearing or something rubbing. Something just ain't right. Sound bad. There's the grease anyway, all packed out on top. That seems okay. Starting and stopping can sometimes be a broken wire. This thing's getting quite a bit of work now. You know if it's a broken wire if you push in the battery and it runs and then stops whenever you let it go. It's not a broken wire this time. Or just could be the contacts packed out with dirt. Or it could be his batteries just worn out. There's definitely a sound off of this anyway. So we'll see what that is first. More than likely that's it. Clean this out. We'll check that bearing as well. And we'll clean out all the gunk out of here and the switch. See if we can get it running a bit quieter. Never know. It could be stopping because it could be jamming up or overheating as well. Simply because of a bad bearing maybe. Clean this first. Now, this bearing at the top, it's actually fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's made in China brand, but it is just a 608 bearing, readily available. And Dewalt even sell it separately. So you can buy the rotor on its own, air deflector, gear, bearing, nut. But for some reason, they don't sell you this other bearing on its own. This one is actually a 688, which is a branded one, CW. This one's not actually gone, which is fairly easy to change. This one's also easy to change. That's the one that's gone. And that's the one they don't sell on its own, only sold with the armature. It's not completely gone, it's just sounding rough. You could get away with taking that seal off and putting a little bit of grease onto it. That would quieten it down. But I actually have got 688 bearings here, so we'll just change it. But that ain't the main problem. Main problem is this one. That's where the noise is coming from. The bearing in the head here, it's actually gone. That is going to have to be changed. Now this head is actually built a little bit different from most other grinders. Normally there's 4 bolts at the bottom, take off the whole gear and spindle assembly, leaving the aluminium head behind. This top goes off to actually expose the gear. So to take this off, get the spindle out, you have to take off the C-clip and press the spindle off this gear. So I have to press it out down here. I'm assuming so anyway. So we'll see how this goes first. Obviously there's a bearing on this as well, it's actually gone, so that spindle will be pressed into the bearing. So that'll have to come out of the bearing as well, so it's going to have to be pressed out of the gear and the bearing, so this shaft will be very tight. Hopefully we don't bust this housing doing this. So we want to support this underneath and press this here spindle. That was tight. There's our bad bearing. There's actually two bearings in this. Well, that one's even worse. Have to change that one too. It's a 6001. And I was assuming it has to come off this way because this here end washer that actually locks your blade, I think that comes off, but it can't come off that way because the shaft is too big. It actually has to come off this way. So this shaft's 12mm, same as the inside diameter of the bearing, so I have to assume this is a spacer. I think this pushes off along with the bearing. Only one way to find out. Yeah, actually very easy. Not a problem. So that's just a wee packer sleeve. And that's your bearing. And everything else actually comes off the same way. And then this one should come out fairly easy. If you take these screws out. Just give it a little tap. See, that was the main culprit. That's also 6001. So I'll give this head a quick wee clean out. Right, two new 6001 bearings. One in here to help it go on, a bit of heat. Actual heat's great for expanding the metal, giving you the clearance to get the bearing in nice and easy, but also just drying it helps dry off all the excess kerosene that I actually use in washing it out. And the other one goes onto here. It's not even that tight a fit. Press hard enough, you probably could press that on. But with this bush, we'll need a bearing press. But the bush is a little bit tighter. Just change this now we're at it. Surprisingly enough, it's a 688 bearing for all the size of it. It's actually more expensive than those other two bearings. Now, the 608 at the top, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that one, so I'm going to leave it as is. But if you need to change it, very simple. Just take off this nut. That's your gear, then lifts off. You should pull off that there bearing then. This should now be ready to go. But first of all, press the spindle into this bearing first. Bearing in place first, then press the gear on. And lastly, put your circlip back on top. That's it. Now, should be able to rebuild. Hopefully the actual start and stop, and I was saying, has to do with his batteries. So I can't see a problem with it here. Leads are good. Now mind you, these contacts were corroded, so I actually got to file and clean them a wee bit. Corrosion and dirt were all the way back over here, so maybe that had something to do with it as well. This little metal pin here that the trigger actually activates on. Make sure that's in place. Generally it pulls out whenever you take the cover off. Pulls out and the whole lever moves down. So push it down to around about here. Put that pin back in again. So obviously this won't go together unless that's in the right place. So it has to locate to this side of the body too. Your deflector goes on, then your rotor. This has to locate under the body of the machine too. And also, don't forget about your lock pin. Air deflector, which we cut out up here, that's gone on to the slot where the button is. Then this wee pin down here, it's actually offset, has to go onto here. Push that down. Now, last thing is a good gob of fresh grease. too much. Do not want gears cavitating because there's too much grease in it. That's about enough. Any excess pushes up onto the head here. Bottom flange in, drop that on. So we'll just put that guard on first. Then bottom flange. Then this washer. The only point of the washer is simply to hold the bottom flange on whenever you're changing the blades. So if you take off the top nut to change the blade, this doesn't just drop off on you. That's all it's for. If it breaks on you, don't worry. You can do without it. Now, see if that does the job. Doesn't that sound a lot better? Starts, it runs, and it's a lot quieter. Now, unless those batteries are worn, because it's a fresh battery, as it's wobbling about, but should be better now with them contacts cleaned. So that is the first few machines fixed after being closed for the summer holidays. Thought I was making a bit of progress, got through a good few machines there, but since the last few days after opening again, all the machines are starting to land in again. Everybody else might be going on their holidays, so all the tools are lying on to be fixed while they're off. Plus anything that didn't come in last week is all landed on this week. So plenty more tools to be fixed, so stay tuned. Anyway, thanks for watching this long tool repair marathon. Hope she's enjoyed it. As always folks, give us a wee like and a follow if you're enjoying the videos, and if possible, hit that share and subscribe button as well. Cheers, thanks for watching. Chat to you next time.